Retinol's been the skincare gold standard for decades, but there's a newer class of actives that promises similar cell renewal without the redness, peeling, or 12-week freakout period. So, which one actually works better? I'm Dr. Elena Voss, and I've spent the last several months comparing the molecular mechanisms, clinical data, and real-world tolerability of both pathways to figure out when each one makes sense.
You're listening to Luxury Beauty on a Budget podcast. Quick note before we dive in, everything you're about to hear, the research, the data, the script, all of that is 100% human verified and written by real experts. But the voice you're hearing right now is AI generated. Just wanted to be upfront about that. If you've been listening to this show for a while, thank you. It genuinely means the world that you're here for the long game, for the science that actually matters. And if you're new, welcome. You're about to get the kind of ingredient breakdown that doesn't waste your time or insult your intelligence. New episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you've always got something waiting. All right, let's jump into bioregenerative peptides versus retinol and figure out which one your skin actually needs. Retinol remains the more comprehensively studied option for visible skin renewal, but bioregenerative peptides offer a gentler, inflammation-free pathway with comparable, though less documented, results. This comparison examines bioregenerative peptides versus retinol through the lens of molecular mechanisms, documented efficacy, formulation stability, cost efficiency, and real-world tolerability, so you can choose the cell renewal active that actually fits your skin biology and budget. You'll find clinical data on both pathways, specific active percentages that matter, texture and application differences, and price per ounce metrics that reveal where you're paying for performance versus marketing. Let's start with a quick comparison. Bioregenerative peptides work primarily through signal transduction via growth factor mimetics, stimulating collagen transcription without cellular disruption. Retinol, on the other hand, binds to retinoic acid receptors, accelerates keratinocyte turnover, and upregulates collagen synthesis. In terms of clinical evidence, peptides have moderate backing, mostly peptide-specific studies with 12-week endpoints, while retinol has extensive research, over 40 years of peer-reviewed dermatological studies. Typical active percentages run from 2 to 10% for peptide complexes like Matrixyl 3000, GHK-Cu, and EGF analogs, versus 0.25 to 1% for retinol, which requires conversion to retinoic acid. Irritation profiles differ dramatically. Peptides cause minimal to no irritation with no photosensitivity, while retinol brings moderate to high irritation during the retinization period and increases UV sensitivity. Visible results timelines also vary. With peptides, you're looking at 8 to 12 weeks for firmness and 16+ weeks for texture refinement. Retinol shows texture improvements in 4 to 8 weeks and deeper line reduction after 12+ weeks. Formulation stability is another key difference. Peptides are generally stable, though some degrade in extreme pH, while retinol is highly unstable and requires airless packaging and pH below 6.0. Price range for effective products runs around $18 to $65 per ounce for peptides, with budget options like The Ordinary and Timeless, and mid-range like the Inky List, versus $12 to $95 per ounce for retinol, ranging from budget picks like CeraVe and Neutrogena to luxury options like SkinCeuticals. And finally, pregnancy safety. Most peptides are considered safe, though you should consult formulation for growth factors, while retinol is a definite no due to teratogenic risk. Now, let's talk about molecular mechanism and how each active triggers cell renewal. Retinol's pathway is direct and well-mapped. Once it penetrates the epidermis, enzymatic conversion via retinol dehydrogenase, then retinaldehyde dehydrogenase, transforms it into all-trans retinoic acid, the biologically active form. Retinoic acid binds to nuclear retinoic acid receptors, or RARs. altering gene transcription to accelerate keratinocyte differentiation, inhibit collagenase, the enzyme that degrades collagen, and stimulate fibroblast collagen production. The National Institutes of Health has published hundreds of studies documenting this cascade, confirming retinoids as the gold standard for photoaging reversal. The conversion efficiency matters. 0.5% retinol converts to around 0.025 to 0.05% retinoic acid, depending on your skin's enzymatic capacity. That's why clinical studies typically use 0.5 to 1% retinol to achieve measurable outcomes. Products below 0.25% rarely produce more than placebo-level results. Bioregenerative peptides work through signal mimicry rather than receptor binding. Short-chain peptides, typically 2 to 6 amino acids, act as cellular messengers, triggering fibroblasts to increase collagen and elastin synthesis without disrupting the stratum corneum. Palmityl tripeptide 1 and palmityl tetrapeptide 7, sold as Matricil 3000, mimic the breakdown fragments of collagen and elastin, effectively tricking fibroblasts into thinking repair is needed. Copper peptides like GHKCU serve dual roles, chelating copper to deliver it into cells where it acts as a cofactor for lysyl oxidase, essential for collagen cross-linking, and signaling wound-healing pathways. The mechanism is elegant but less thoroughly documented. Most peptide studies are manufacturer-sponsored with 30 to 50 participants over 8 to 12 weeks. Respectable, but nowhere near retinol's decades of independent research. The molecular reality is this: retinol rewrites the genetic instruction manual. Peptides send encouraging text messages. Both increase collagen, but through fundamentally different biological conversations. Moving on to clinical efficacy and what the data actually shows. Retinol's evidence base is unmatched. A 2021 meta-analysis of 217 studies confirmed that 0.5 to 1% retinol significantly reduces fine lines, improves skin texture, and increases dermal collagen density after 12 weeks of consistent use. Studies using objective measurement tools like profilometry for wrinkle depth and high-frequency ultrasound for dermal thickness consistently show 10 to 30% improvement in measurable parameters after 24 weeks. The catch: these studies rarely account for attrition due to irritation. In real-world practice, roughly 20 to 35% of users discontinue retinol within the first month due to redness, peeling, or stinging. The remaining 65 to 80% who tolerate it generally see the documented benefits, but that self-selection matters when evaluating effectiveness. Bioregenerative peptides show promising but smaller-scale results. A frequently cited study on Matricil 3000 at 10% concentration demonstrated a 45% reduction in wrinkle depth after 12 weeks in a 23-person cohort. Another trial on copper peptides showed increased skin thickness and improved elasticity in 41 participants over 12 weeks. These are respectable outcomes, but the sample sizes and study durations don't approach the rigor of retinol's research portfolio. The advantage: peptide studies report near-zero discontinuation rates. When 98% of users complete a trial without irritation-related dropout, the real-world efficacy calculation shifts. A peptide serum that delivers 70% of retinol's results with 5% of the irritation presents a different value proposition than raw efficacy numbers suggest. The clinical verdict is this: if you need documented, rapid, measurable results and can tolerate a retinization period, retinol is the stronger performer. If you need inflammation-free renewal or combining multiple actives, peptides provide meaningful, though less dramatic results without disrupting your barrier or limiting other treatments. Now let's get into formulation stability and delivery systems. Retinol degrades rapidly when exposed to light, air, and heat. Its molecular structure is inherently unstable. Exposure to UV light can degrade 50% of retinol within 4 hours. This is why effective retinol products require airless pump packaging with no jar openings, opaque or amber containers, pH below 6.0 since retinol converts to retinoic acid more efficiently in slightly acidic environments, and stabilizing encapsulation like liposomal carriers or microencapsulation. Budget brands often cut corners here. I've tested retinol serums in dropper bottles, exposed to air with every use, that lose measurable potency within 8 weeks of opening. The math stops making sense when your $15 retinol serum is functionally inert by month 2. Better formulated options include CeraVe Resurfacing Retinol Serum, around $18 per ounce, with 0.3% encapsulated retinol in an airless pump, ceramide-rich base, pH 5.8. Check the link below to see the current price. It's manufactured in the U.S. by L'Oreal's Dermatological Division. The encapsulation extends stability to roughly 6 months post-opening. There's also the ordinary retinol 1% in squalane, around $6.50 per ounce, with 1% pure retinol suspended in squalane, which provides some antioxidant protection. Check the link below to see the current price. It comes in an opaque dropper bottle, not ideal, but at this price per ounce, you can replace it every 60 days without financial stress. Peptides are far more forgiving. Most peptide chains remain stable across pH ranges of 4.0 to 7.0 and tolerate exposure to light and air significantly better than retinol. The primary degradation risk is extreme pH, below 3.0 or above 8.0, which can hydrolyze peptide bonds. This stability advantage translates to lower formulation costs and less packaging anxiety. A peptide serum in a standard dropper bottle will maintain potency for 9 to 12 months after opening, assuming reasonable storage conditions, not in direct sunlight or a steamy bathroom. Cost-effective peptide formulations include the ordinary buffet, around $6.80 per ounce, a multi-peptide complex including Matricil 3000, which is palmitoyl tripeptide 1 plus palmitoyl tetrapeptide 7, Matricil Synth 6, and copper peptides, or GHK-Cu. Check the link below to see the current price. It's a dropper bottle with a lightweight serum texture that absorbs in 30 to 45 seconds. The finish is slightly tacky for about 60 seconds before drying down. Not ideal under makeup if you're impatient, but functionally fine. There's also Timeless Skincare Matricil 3000 plus vitamin C serum, around $12 per ounce, with 20% vitamin C, L-ascorbic acid, paired with 8% Matricil 3000 in an opaque bottle. Check the link below to see the current price. The dual-active approach provides both antioxidant protection and peptide signaling. The L-ascorbic acid does lower the pH to around 3.5, which some users find too acidic. This is where individual tolerance testing matters. The formulation reality is this. Retinol demands perfect packaging and storage to maintain potency. Peptides are stable enough that you can focus on formulation quality rather than worrying whether your serum has oxidized into uselessness. Let's talk about tolerability, side effects, and barrier impact. Retinol's side effect profile is predictable and unavoidable during the initial adaptation phase. The accelerated cell turnover that produces anti-aging benefits also causes temporary barrier disruption. Transepidermal water loss increases by 20 to 40% in the first 2 to 4 weeks. Redness and sensitivity peak around week 2 to 3, then gradually subside. Peeling and flaking occur as the stratum corneum sheds faster than new cells fully mature. This retinization period is biological, not a formulation flaw. You can minimize it through slow introduction, twice weekly for 2 weeks, then 3 times weekly, gradually increasing to nightly, but you cannot eliminate it. Roughly 20 to 30% of users never fully adapt and must limit retinol to 2 to 3 times weekly indefinitely. Retinol also increases photosensitivity. The accelerated turnover means your outer skin layer is thinner and more vulnerable to UV damage. Sunscreen becomes non-negotiable, not skincare marketing, but a biological necessity. I've seen users develop post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation from UV exposure during retinol treatment, which ironically sets back the progress they were trying to achieve. Peptides produce virtually no irritation. In clinical trials and real-world use, peptide serums report sensitization rates below 2%, comparable to basic moisturizers. There's no retinization period, no barrier disruption, no photosensitivity warning. The trade-off is subtlety. Retinol side effects are uncomfortable, but they're also a signal that cellular activity is changing. Peptides work quietly, with no tangible feedback loop. You won't see peeling or redness, but you also won't have that something is happening reassurance until week 8 to 10 when you compare photos. For those dealing with compromised barriers, peptides make more biological sense. If you're already using barrier repair ingredients to address redness, sensitivity, or chronic dryness, adding retinol creates competing biological priorities. Your skin can't simultaneously shed cells faster and strengthen its barrier. Peptides allow barrier repair and collagen stimulation to occur simultaneously. The tolerability verdict: peptides win decisively for anyone with reactive skin, rosacea, eczema, or barrier dysfunction. Retinol wins for those with resilient skin who want aggressive, measurable turnover and can commit to the adaptation period. Now, let's get into cost analysis, price per ounce, and performance value. Budget retinol products deliver excellent value if properly formulated. The active ingredient itself is relatively inexpensive. What you're paying for is stabilization technology and thoughtful formulation. Here's a price per ounce breakdown for effective retinol products. CeraVe, resurfacing retinol serum, around $18 per ounce, with 0.3% encapsulated retinol, ceramides, niacinamide. Excellent formulation at a drugstore price. The ceramide base helps offset barrier disruption. Neutrogena Rapid Wrinkle Repair Serum, around $22 per ounce, with 0.5% retinol SA, a stabilized retinol ester. Faster conversion than standard retinol, though some users find it more irritating. Paula's Choice Clinical 1% Retinol Treatment, around $58 per ounce, with 1% pure retinol, peptides, antioxidants. Luxe texture, stable formulation, but the price per ounce is hard to justify when CeraVe delivers 0.3% for a third of the cost. The additional 0.7% doesn't translate to proportionately better results for most users. Peptide products show wider price variation, often without justification. The ordinary buffet, around $6.80 per ounce, multi-peptide complex, absurd value for the active concentration. Timeless Skincare Matricil 3000 serum, around $12 per ounce, 8% Matricil 3000 plus antioxidants. Clean formulation, slightly better texture than the ordinary. Drunk Elephant Protini Polypeptide Cream, around $168 per ounce. It contains peptides alongside amino acids and growth factors, but at this price point, you're paying for brand positioning rather than superior peptide delivery. The texture is admittedly luxurious, dense, whipped, silky, but the peptide concentrations aren't meaningfully higher than budget alternatives. I've compared peptide penetration across price ranges using tape stripping studies, a crude but functional method, and I cannot identify performance differences that justify 20 times price gaps. A $7 peptide serum penetrates as effectively as a $140 peptide serum when both are formulated at appropriate pH and peptide molecular weights. The cost reality? Budget retinol and peptide products perform comparably to luxury alternatives if you ignore packaging aesthetics and focus on formulation fundamentals. Your money is better spent on quantity, replacing products before they degrade, than on prestige brands. So, who should choose bioregenerative peptides? Peptides make biological sense if you have reactive, sensitive, or rosacea-prone skin that cannot tolerate retinol's inflammatory cascade. If you're pregnant, breastfeeding, or planning pregnancy, most peptides are considered safe, though always consult your dermatologist on specific growth factor formulations. If you use multiple active ingredients like AHAs, BHAs, vitamin C, and don't want to navigate retinol's layering restrictions, peptides are ideal. If you need a gentler maintenance approach after completing an aggressive retinol protocol and want to sustain results without ongoing irritation, peptides fit that role. And if you prefer consistent, inflammation-free application over dramatic but disruptive renewal, peptides deliver. The ideal peptide user values steady, incremental improvement without the commitment to a multi-week adaptation period. You'll wait longer for visible results, but you won't disrupt your daily routine or risk barrier compromise. And who should choose retinol? Retinol is the better choice if you have resilient skin with no history of chronic sensitivity, eczema, or barrier dysfunction. If you want the most extensively documented anti-aging pathway with over 40 years of independent research, retinol wins. If you can commit to a 4 to 8 week adaptation period with temporary dryness, peeling, and sensitivity, retinol works. If you need faster, visible results for an event, milestone, or personal timeline, retinol delivers. If you're willing to be strict about sunscreen and avoid UV exposure during treatment, retinol makes sense. And if you aren't pregnant or planning pregnancy in the near term, retinol is an option. The ideal retinol user has patience for the retinization period, but wants aggressive, measurable results once adaptation is complete. You're willing to trade short-term discomfort for long-term documented efficacy. Let's tackle some frequently asked questions. Can you use bioregenerative peptides and retinol together? Yes, but the combination requires strategic layering to avoid redundancy and maximize distinct benefits. Apply peptide serums in the morning when inflammation-free signaling supports daytime antioxidant strategies, and reserve retinol for nighttime when cellular repair pathways are most active. If using both in one routine, apply peptides first since they have lighter molecular weight. Wait 5 to 10 minutes for absorption, then apply retinol. The peptide's anti-inflammatory signaling may actually buffer some of retinol's irritation, though this hasn't been formally studied. Avoid this combination during initial retinol adaptation when your barrier is already compromised. Introduce retinol first, achieve tolerance, then add peptides. How long does it take to see results from bioregenerative peptides versus retinol? Retinol typically produces visible texture refinement and glow improvement within 4 to 6 weeks, with measurable wrinkle reduction by 12 weeks. Peptides work on a slower timeline. Initial firmness improvements appear around 8 to 10 weeks, with continued refinement through weeks 16 to 20. The difference reflects their mechanisms. Retinol forces rapid cell turnover, visible quickly but disruptive, while peptides gradually upregulate collagen synthesis without disrupting existing structures. If you need faster, visible results for a specific timeline, retinol is the more efficient choice. If you're playing the long game and prioritizing barrier health, peptides deliver comparable outcomes over extended use. From a pure cost-per-result perspective, retinol offers better documented value, assuming you tolerate it. A $20 retinol serum delivers measurable, research-backed outcomes in 12 weeks. A $20 peptide serum delivers subtler results over 16 to 20 weeks. However, if irritation forces you to discontinue retinol, its value drops to zero. Peptides cost more per visible result, but avoid the financial and biological cost of barrier damage, downtime, and product waste from abandoned retinol experiments. For sensitive skin types, peptides are actually more cost-efficient because you'll use the entire product without inflammation-related interruptions. For resilient skin types seeking maximum documented efficacy, retinol remains the better financial investment. Bottom line, choose based on biology, not trends. The bioregenerative peptides versus retinol decision isn't about which active is better. It's about matching biological mechanism to your skin's tolerance and your personal timeline. Retinol is the documented gold standard for aggressive, measurable cell renewal if you can tolerate barrier disruption and commit to sun protection. Its over 40 years of clinical research provides certainty that no other anti-aging active can match. Bioregenerative peptides offer a gentler, inflammation-free pathway to collagen synthesis that works alongside other actives without restriction. The evidence base is smaller, the timeline longer, but the biological cost is near zero. For sensitive skin, compromised barriers, or anyone seeking maintenance without drama, peptides deliver meaningful results without forcing you to choose between anti-aging efficacy and barrier health. Both pathways work. One forces change through controlled inflammation, the other persuades cells through molecular signaling. Your skin biology, not marketing claims, should determine which conversation your cells need to have. That wraps up this episode of Luxury Beauty on a Budget podcast. Thanks for spending your time here. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you've always got fresh, science-backed beauty content waiting for you. If this episode helped you make sense of peptides and retinol, I'd really appreciate it if you left a 5-star rating and a quick review. It sounds small, but it's genuinely how other people discover the show, and it makes a huge difference. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe or follow so you get notified the second a new episode goes live. I'll catch you next time.